has been your observation? What have you read about? What have you seen in action? And also, what do you anticipate as the changes that are happening to the leadership styles uh, around in the organizations? How does the leadership style change with these changes happening around? So over to you, Piyush.
Hey, thank you. And this topic is something really close to my heart because day in, day out, we are addressing this thing. And, every time, whenever I go on LinkedIn or even, having chat with my friends, this topic always comes. So, to answer your question, I would take, I'll go back 12, 14 years back when I joined my company. And that time, I know, I mean, it was used to be a simple login. I had to log in there and then do my whole stuff and just, finish my work, and I'm coming back to my home. That was the scenario. And if you look at today's scenario, it has completely changed. Why? Because you also mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned about the COVID, the remote work happening. Then you mentioned about the AI, and you missed on to mentioning a very important aspect, and that is the social media, which is playing the biggest role in employees life, I would say. And 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 why this is happening? It's just happening because the internet is available so easily. In company, in those days, it was very easy to control the access of all the employees. You can block all the sites. But can you imagine if that is happening today? Not possible. Everybody has got their own mobile in their hand. They are following Elon Musk, they are following Narayan Murthy, they are following Modi. They have access to all the great leaders across geographies. So I think this is completely transforming into, uh, where, everybody has an access and everybody has an opinion. So managing these opinions of different people, especially the millennials and Gen Z, where they are very tech savvy, and plus everybody wants to associate with the purpose. They are not just here to do, everyday tasks. They are not here just to do any sort of work, just to earn salary. They are here for the purpose. So I think going forward, purpose driven communities, building those communities is going to be the biggest job of any leader. Communitization of whole workforce, that is going to be the key role of the leader, whosoever is driving that company, the department, the function, the team. uh, Solely because the reasons that you mentioned. So this is going to be a challenge for the leadership, balancing the trade-off between, the stability and the agility, because everybody has got the access to the internets and the entire social media. And stability because they want to preserve their core values, vision, mission, and everything. So building those purpose and driving the workforce towards, that community, that is going to be the leadership style that will evolve over a period of time, and they will be only successful. That's what I think.
Very true. I mean, I can agree to that. The whole concept of the community, while it is picking up now because of social media and the way communities are being created, but even if you look in the past, leadership was driving organizations through a vision statement, a mission statement. And when everybody aligned to it, it formed a community. That community was not formally organized, but it was loosely held with the thread of vision and mission. So, rightfully said, Piyush, it has now become more important that people are no longer being just driven by the paycheck and the work which is there. There is yearning to be driven by purpose. And when a leader is able to establish the purpose, the vision of the organization, it's easier for people to follow, and people are actually looking for that. So, that's definitely a significant change that is happening, and that makes the job of the leader, the CXO, even difficult, because the leadership now should be able to articulate and communicate the purpose, the vision of the
Absolutely.
organization. So, rightly
Absolutely.
said. Let's move on to Weber. Weber, your views.
Thanks, Hemant, and thanks, Piyush, for sharing such a brilliant prelude where you talked about social media and the influence that it has on the leadership of people. Now, what had changed, and I was thinking about this over a period of, I mean, few months now. What had changed in last few years, and not the last 3 4 years, but what has changed is the time span of people coming together and working on something has reduced. So, earlier, so if I look at my father's generation, people worked together for 15 years, 20 years together, and they knew each other at like back of their hand. Now, initially we talked about people working for 5 years together. Now this has come down to projects, few months, even few days in some cases. Okay, so the leadership has changed where it is now no longer a designated leader. Okay, you are the leader and now you're supposed to lead. It has become a sort of situational leader. Somebody who is on the job, who is at the right spot with the right skills, has to own it up, step it up, and drive and then deliver. So as it comes in battle, the person who's there on the battlefield is the leader, who's going to lead, who's going to drive the whole scenario, and who's going to see, who knows what is happening there. Somebody who's sitting in the control room may not understand what is happening. So that's something which is changing. And today the battles are everywhere. It's not only the battlefields, but everything has become a battle. Every part of life has become like a battle. The other change which I see, and which is a big change as a leader that has happened in me over past few years, is there is no one style of leadership that suits all. When I work with few people, and you work as a leader with people, it is not something where, okay, I'll empower you. That is not enough. For some people, only empowerment is enough. For some people, you need to work with them, you need to coach them, you need to engage them. So how do you identify that pulse of people in a shorter span of time, set the right expectations, and drive? That is how the leadership is now changing, and that agility in leaders is something which is extremely critical today. If you can showcase that agility, and if you can have that learning excellence where you can learn and quickly pick up your own pulses from people, what is required, how things have to move, you will be able to make a bigger impact with your own leadership. The other thing which I see is, uh, some with these short-lived team spans and the entire expectations being very very short-termish, somewhere the expectation on empathy has also come in. Does my leader understand me as a person? And do I give that enough time to my people to talk about it, to talk about themselves, to be themselves? Somebody may have a very big hobby outside the work. Can that be used within the work? That is something that leaders have to consistently look for and continually work and get that pulse. And that's the whole theme that is coming out. How do you connect with your people? How do you empathetically connect with them? And how do you get the best out of them from the shortest possible time, that you're working together? So to me, leadership has come from being a designated leader driving in a certain way, being a boss, to being a friend who guides, who mentors, who coaches, based on the so friend, philosopher, guide. At various stages you have to be with your team at various stages of their career, their expectations, their life stages. So that's how it is right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. Friend, philosopher, guide as the new definition of a leader. Nicely put. I like the way you took the entire landscape of leadership. Leadership has now become situational, and how there's no one style of leadership. In fact, as a leader, you should be aware of all the different styles of leadership. And while you may have a dominant style, you will have to look at the time and situation and be flexible enough to adopt a leadership style which is right for the situation. And of course, battlefields are going to be everywhere. You will have to find your leadership style and play them. So people focus, of course, leaders have traditionally been organizational, goal focused and vision focused, I think more and more people focus will be required, because it's only when you will become people focused you will be able to understand and take your people along. And it's now more complex than before, because earlier your people were in your office, in your factory, in your workspace. Now your people are going to be spread, absolutely spread across the globe, some in your office, some working from your home, and some spending a few hours of their time based on their contracts with your firm for your projects and specific tasks. The whole idea of the workforce is going to evolve and change drastically. Fantastic. Thank you, Weber, for those thoughts. And now we move on to Vaishali. Your thoughts.
Yeah. So thank you, Hemant. So just it's about connecting the dots from what Piyush and Vaibhav spoke. When I started my career, we always used to have appraisals at the end of every year. The only person who used to give feedback would be my boss to me. It was always from the top to the bottom. But what has changed in recent time is this process called reverse mentoring, where even the freshers, even the person who joined an organization yesterday is entitled to give a feedback to a person who has been in the same organization for 10 years. As Piyush rightly said, there is so much of information in social media, there is so much of knowledge out there. The sources from which people can learn has expanded in manifolds today. So this becomes even more challenging for the leaders because we have to be on the top of the game. And one most and easiest way of getting that done is through working on reverse mentoring and feedback. Leaders have to be more open to feedback nowadays, because now even in my organization we have a process called reverse mentoring, where there are two things that works. One is about how many of the business unit heads that we apply to mentor them, and how many people we in turn mentor the juniors. So this is becoming a benchmark nowadays. So before that, before 10 years, before 15 years, this was not in the system at all. Nobody even bothered so much about the feedback. It was all about the sustained way of working, and then getting it done. So now today's leaders, we all have to be very, very open. This is where your emotional intelligence comes into picture. Being open-minded to that, accept what is being said, and try to inculcate and manifest the ideas and the feedback that we get in. So normally what happens, the discussions happen, we get so much of insight and it just goes in there. But for new age leaders, it is very, very vital that we have to find out ways to manifest them, because now everything is being seen, everything is being documented, and everything is being recorded. We have to get into that kind of a navigation where, as Vaibhav rightly said, from boss, from friend, now it is becoming like we all are social leaders, to get ourselves adapted into that social zone where feedback is open from all corners. And the second thing I wanted to speak about is the way recognition is evolving. We have a new age recognition. So recognition normally happens through the increments that we get. It is not just about monetizing. Now, as Piyush said, every organization has got a media nowadays. So everyone runs face of the year, face of this organization, face of that organization. So retention is equal to recognition. If you are able to recognize people adequately, that starts reflecting in our retention. And the new age recognition is what leaders have to think. How do we differently recognize people? If we give silent appraisal that gets into the kitty, then it sits over there. But how much you expose that employee to the world, show how much they have contributed, what is their potential, and how much they have actually been instrumental is something the world wants to listen, and even the employee himself wants to pack he or she in front of the world. And the third last point is about industry leadership. Pandemic is one example where industries came along and we had this cross-functional help. Being monopoly was there at some point of time, but with the amount of technology advancements, monopoly is getting shrinked, and every organization is becoming a monopoly in doing a different things within the larger umbrella of doing business. So it is for us to evolve from being an organizational leader to an industry leader. So I think put together your reverse mentoring, new age recognition, and evolving as an industry leader is what the new age leaders have to equip themselves to run business better and create greater impacts.
Wow. I think between the three of you, everything has been covered, and we could pretty much conclude our panel discussion here. We have defined the new age leadership in a very, very different light, different perspectives. And if you look at it, it does make a lot of sense because the leader needs to lead a whole new generation of a workforce. And that workforce has changed. Their preference of working, their way of looking at work, the definition of work, their perspective towards livelihood, salaries, it's all very, very different from a few decades ago.